go to my guest here today. This individual, he's a young man, and I've known him for, I guess, maybe about 2, 3 years already. And when I talk about young man, he is a young man. He's like his 21, I think, or 22, 23. Okay, he's kind of getting up in years. I guess when I first met him, he was probably like 20 or 21. I'm so proud of him because I've seen his walk, I've seen his journey. Nowadays it's a little hard because you don't see a lot of young people. I'm talking about young adults that are really serving God, and I mean they are. Don't get me wrong, they are out there. But I think once they leave or once they graduate from high school, they kind of go out and they do their own thing, and you see a lot of that they leave the church and not connected somehow, some way. But for whatever reason, this young man, and he'll share with you a little bit of his story and maybe what's helped him on his journey right now as he enters adulthood, so to speak, and what he's doing, because believe me, he's doing something that God is moving in his life in so many different ways. So I want to for him to share some of these things. I want to welcome to our radio talk show today Anthony Moreno. Anthony, my brother, my friend, say hello to the people listening.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I could say a lot of things about you, but it would take up too much time. But you are a young man that I really respect, and I've seen your growth within these 3 years and how you're developing and how you are really just walking with God in your life and how things have been happening. I want you to share a couple of those things. First, a little background. Are you from San Antonio or?
Yes, I'm from San Antonio.
Okay.
Born and raised.
Born and raised here. What school or what high school did you go to?
I went to Taft High School. I grew up around Holmes High School, Ingram Park Mall area. I was supposed to go to Holmes High School.
Okay.
But I went to Taft. My parents wanted me to go there to stay away from trouble.
Were you getting into trouble at the high schools?
In high school I got into trouble once. I had went to alternative school.
Yeah, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I got caught smoking weed at school. I was a sophomore, but before that, I had an older brother. He was a gang member, and he had moved into our house, and he just brought an influence that I had my dad looking up to my dad. My dad would wake up 3, 4, 5 in the morning, or he'll come home 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And as a provider, that's what I'm seeing. And then at the same time, I'm in 7th grade, and then my brother comes in with his whatever he had that he was going through, and it just mixtured into that later on. I never joined a gang or anything like that, but it was also, he was showing me more tough love. I was getting that from my brother than my dad, which I was saying, I guess I had to be like this to be a man, to be more, as like you said before, fighting wise, boxing. That's what I believe also was an encouragement to it.
Right.
Yeah, but it was also a good turnout because it's I'm using it in a sport. I once I started actually boxing and stuff, I learned how to control it at an early age. 13, I already knew that I wasn't supposed to be out there just being a bully or go, and I already felt like, okay, now that I know this, I don't have to go and prove myself or do anything to get respect or anything like that. I know how to, if the situation comes, boom, it's there.
Right. So now you started at an early age boxing then? What at what age did you start boxing?
I started boxing when I was 13.
13. So that really was a changing moment in your life, because I think if you would have continued on that path where you were in the beginning, you could have gone any route, especially like you said, your brother, you saw what he was doing maybe, and the influence that a lot of times people don't realize if you're a big brother, if you have younger siblings, that they're watching you, they're looking up to you, and they're seeing what you're doing, and if that's the path or whatever it is that you are living, then that's what influences them. And a lot of times that's what happens, that these younger siblings look up to their brothers or their sisters, and if it's not the best thing, then that's kind of the direction they may go. But thank God that you were able to say, you know what, my focus had shifted from that, and you got focused into the boxing. and that's kind of where I think your focus became, right? And I see that now. But when you started going that route, did you ever think that, well, I'm doing it right now just to do it, or was it something you said, let me see how far I can get?
When I started boxing at 13, I didn't think it was going to be a thing as being a professional or fighting in an event or any type of event boxing wise. I just saw it as something to do to keep. I was doing it during the summer, so when we're in school, we had nothing to do. That's was something that kept me.
That took up your time.
Yeah, a lot, and it also burned out a lot of energy. You go home and you're already. You just want to go home and sit on the couch.
Yeah, you're worn out, right? It's a good workout, so it's like I don't even feel like going out now.
I was also with the one that had it at his house. He was part of, I guess, family member. He was my mom's uncle's brother, and that uncle was married into her family. And he fought in Las Vegas on a Mike Tyson event. He fought on the undercard of a Mike Tyson event.
Wow.
And
at that level. Yeah,
he fought for 2 world titles. He lost. But having him as my coach when I'm 13, I mean, now that I'm seeing it, it's like ordered steps from God that way. Like, and I didn't see it at that time or understand or know that that's what it was going to end up being now.
Right. And so that kind of started your path on saying, okay, you started to get a little bit more focus on, this may lead somewhere. And like you said, you believe at that point was God in your life, because you said that it was kind of like God ordered steps, so to speak.
No, I didn't become a Christian till I accepted Jesus and got baptized when I was 19.
So that's pretty young.
Yeah. Before that, I wasn't walking with God. I didn't have a relationship with him. I went to the catechism. I got my first communion, but I didn't pay attention to the classes, and when I would go to church, I wouldn't pay attention to what they were saying. I did pick up some knowledge of it, but I also saw my mom was the one that was more into it. My dad wasn't. He would go to church sometimes, and then he would stay home, and then we would go, and I'd be like, oh, well, why does he get to stay home and we don't? And
that happens a lot. I mean, I see that a lot in families, and like you said, you were going, but a lot of times, just because you go to church doesn't mean that, okay, I'm where I need to be. A lot of times, as you go through the motions and say, yeah, I'm doing this, and every week it just becomes another repetitive thing that you do with not really something that you can hold on to, but rather just something that I'm doing for the moment.
Yeah. And that was like the discouragement I saw. If he's to my eyes, if he's the one that's the man, the provider, so I'm seeing what he's doing is also what I'm gonna do, is what I was getting. So if he wasn't going to church, it really lowered my interest into what it was. I know also you have your own relationship with God, so that's how it should be built. It shouldn't be built off another person, but that's where you're getting the influence from. That's who right. God uses vessels, and
especially at a young age. That's what I mean. You don't have a concept of, okay, you're developing yourself, and you're like, I'm seeking guidance, or I'm seeking a reference point where what do I need to be, or who do I need to be? And when you don't have that, and this happens a lot, I see that in a lot of families. I know that the father's not involved there, or the father's not leading, the family in that capacity, and so the kids kind of like, well, if dad did it, I can do it too. And that's kind of what your thought process was, right?
Yeah.
And so what was it that, okay, once you realized, okay, my focus is really in boxing, and you started to realize that if I really apply myself even more, I can get further on that. How was now that you have become, that you were saved, how did that influence, or did it influence your boxing in any way whatsoever?
It rocks. It just went in the air, like the level of it, the interest of it, the love for it. I was running, eating healthy, and training hard, but I had something there that was keeping me from actually going and doing the actual part of fighting and having that real experience what I was training for. And after I got saved, he was just working on me also from personal issues. I had got molested when I was 4 years old, And that was a thing that also I believe what drew me to boxing. It kept my mind off of things. It kept me from doing something else crime wise. And I believe my brother, that situation when I was younger, then also having my brother there is what led that to boxing. And then after getting saved, God gave me an opportunity to use boxing as a career.
And you have won some fights that are leading you in that direction, right? I know you won like that time when you went to Florida. I remember we had been talking before, right? Because we kind of talked beforehand, and we kind of, I try to share with you a couple of things, and I guess being somewhat of a mentor to you, so to speak, about facing the giants, right? And that's kind of what at that time, somehow or some way that came up. I remember that you were going to face a giant, and not only one giant, but every time you got into the ring, that you were facing three giants. and talk about that a little bit about what it was, what kind of feeling did you have, or whatever it was that was able to get you through the fight, because it was a pretty tough fight. I saw the pictures afterwards, and I'm like, man, I hope the other guy looks a lot worse than you do.
Yeah, well, the first was actually here. There was a Golden Gloves tournament in February, and God spoke through you and said you're going to be facing the Giants with that. That was the first time it had came up, and I was dropping weight, and I was 2.5 pounds from the weight class I was supposed to be. It was 165, and I was 167.5, and they told me I had 30 minutes. I could have dropped the weight in 30 minutes, but I didn't have any like running shoes. I was in chanclas, and I was like, man, I don't think I could be able to run it off in time. And they said either you were gonna fight the next weight class, which is 178 pounds.
So you were moving up.
Yeah, and that was like, oh man, I don't know. And then God just spoke to me right at that moment, do it. And I was like, okay. I did it, and those 3 days, I got 2 technical knockouts the first and second day, and then the third day went all 3 rounds, and I got the Golden Gloves trophy. That was something I had wanted to do when I was in high school, when I was training to box in high school, but the stuff I believe God had to take out and heal me from is what I had to do to get to that tournament to win. And then also leading on to Florida, I had got to 165, and I just dropped weight too fast, and I was dehydrated. And that was a real scary moment. I was already feeling like I was gonna die before I walked in the ring, and I was winning the fight, and my body just froze. Like I threw a punch, hit me in the nose. My body dropped to the floor, and I remember the peace of God came upon me. I had never been that relaxed in my entire life. When after that, I did, once I hit the floor and I got up, there was no more. I had never witnessed a peaceful feeling like that before. Especially when you're boxing, you're thinking,
even in the middle of a battle, right? You're at peace.
Yeah, you're thinking that you're going through all this chaos in your head and your mind. You're thinking not only what's going on with you, but you're also thinking what he's gonna do after the rest time is over. You're thinking also what your family. I had my parents, my little sister there, and then all the people that were also there. There was 3 rings, so there was a lot of people in that arena, and something takes over you. The Holy Spirit, God just gives you that peace and gives you that real calm peace, and you're focused. I got up, I just wiped some blood off my nose, and I just kept going, and I ended up winning after that. So that was a national tournament. They gave me a belt. That was
yeah, I saw that. I saw the pictures, and I'm like, wow. And I remember you had texted me, I think, like during the night, and you were really, I think, wrestling. I think before the last fight, the last fight that you were going to do, about that you were, I think, maybe a little bit uncertain, or like you were like, it was kind of, you were dealing with those emotions, right, where you're thinking, man, should I, or whatever the case may be. And the enemy, that's when the enemy knows you're weak, and he brings these little seeds of doubt in your head, like, like, and I think the more and it happens, I mean, it happens to all of us, but I think if we really think about those seeds that are planted, it's just like when you actually plant it, like on the ground, if you water it, it begins to grow. You nurture it and fertilize it, and all of a sudden it just takes root and it starts to grow. It's the same thing with the doubts that we have, that if we keep thinking about them, I think it's kind of like we're nurturing them, or adding water to them, and it just starts to grow. That doubt, that little seed, becomes even greater, and thinking, man, I know I can't do this. But for you relied more on God to say, no, I know my faith and my hope is in God, so I know that I can overcome this.
Oh yeah, I had just started the God class, and we were doing the core beliefs, and I was doing Psalms 121, 1 and 2. I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. That one was a one that I was really meditating on and reading before, when I was in the hotel room, and just trying to like really marinate and get it implanted in there. Right. It was also a good thing for the class. When I came back, I had it down. So
that was able to help you, because that's that became your focus.
Oh yeah.
Instead of that little doubt or whatever, that you overcame that and said, okay, you know what, I can't focus on that, because that's going to take me in a different direction. Mm-hmm. But when we focus on the things of God, that says, I'm gonna help you through this. I'm gonna be able to be there in your corner, so to speak, because that's what happened. I think God came into your corner there, and, hey, I got you. I have your six right here, right now.
Yeah.
So you were able to overcome and be successful in that. That's great for kids that are listening out there. This is a great role model. This is someone that you can look up to, because he's overcome a lot. And some of you that may be listening have been going through that, or whatever your situation is. Know that there is a solution to your problem, and that's God. And God will bring people into your life that will help you be able to overcome these situations that you're dealing with, and you're not alone. You don't walk alone. Part of that also is that you're part of one of the young adult youth leaders that were here at LCM. What is it, or how have you also been able to, or what has that done for you, or what is it how has it helped you grow, or what insight have you gotten, or what is it that the youth ministry, because you're committed to that, and that's a great thing. How has that helped you?
Being back there with the youth, that's God has put that in my heart, to be back there, instead of going. I could go to. Everyone has a free will to go to any church, any place they want to go. He's telling me to be back there.
Mm-hmm. Calling.
Yeah, he's telling me to be back there. I remember after a year listening to Pastor Jimmy in the service, he had told Pastor Jimmy invited me. You should go and help out with the youth, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Also, Vaughn, one of the men that was helping out with that ministry, mm-hmm. was in the boxing gym too while I was in the boxing gym, and I had talked to him about it. Then he talked to Pastor Murphy, and then we had the meeting also with USAL, and all of it just unfolds perfectly in line. And being back there, the times that I have gone and spoken up and gave my testimony, or preached, or just spilled out life into them, mm-hmm. I see that it's a greater feeling you see it, how it affects them.
Right. You're giving back.
If it's anything that has to do that I have gone through, to encourage them, that they can overcome it, or if they're going through a problem, and if it, not selfish wise, it's to make sure that they either get over it themselves because of God. Obviously, God's in the center of it. Or they don't go through it because I already went through it, so I'm able to, right. Help them out with that.
Exactly, and that's so true, because that's like, and I shared this before. It's like when I was a teenager too. Someone was like what you're doing to them now. Someone was doing to me, speaking life, in so many different areas. There was spiritual people, there were coaches, there were business people. There were just so many people that were speaking different things into me. And as a young person, you don't realize it, but you do receive it. But as you grow, as you mature, you realize that those influences are part of your life, and that's what kind of keeps you on the right side, so to speak. Doesn't mean you won't make mistakes, but those things that you have spoken into somebody, do stay with them. and I believe that I see that in you, that you are there for them, and some of the young adult leaders that that I've had the pleasure to work with and be there for them. What they tell me and say thank you for helping me. I was there, and now I'm kind of stepping up and being able to, like I tell them, I say you got to step up to another level, but that doesn't happen unless you get into it. And so I see that happening. So I'm very proud of you guys and what you're doing and how you're helping and how these youth are being affected because you are speaking life into these youth as well.
They're more of a family than my biological family. I see it like that. Honestly, I see them more than my family.
Yeah.
God removed a lot of friends that I used to be around.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of family that I don't see that as often, and He replaced it with them. I believe that's. I have no problem with it.
Yeah,
you know?
And I know what you're talking about because you create a relationship with them, and they're hurting, their highs, their lows,
Mm-hmm.
What they're dealing with, and I know some of them, one of them called me dad, and I'm like, wow, that's a humbling experience because they see you in that capacity. And so I know that whatever it is that God's doing is working. A lot of people may not understand it because when you're not there, you don't know the process of what's going on. But when you have that relation, you're working with them, that's what draws them to you, as far as, introducing God to them and being able to share God's love with them. They see that. And so it's a good thing overall for everyone that's involved because God just continues to bless and move and direct that if it's done for the right reason, of course. So any last words? Because I'm looking here that we're almost out of time. Anything you want to share?
Anyone who's going through any type of mental battle, physical, spiritual, just keep fighting the good fight of faith. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I use that verse a lot with any type of battle that we go through in life. I just encourage you to keep fighting, and God loves you. Jesus loves you. We all love you. And that's it.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for taking your time and being here to sharing your story and a little bit of, what's going on and how God has moving in you to do what you're doing right now. KDRY listeners, we thank you again for tuning in to Bridging the Gap Radio Talk Show. If you need more information about Bridging the Gap, we invite you to visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Bridging the Gap Community. Go in there and like us because we're giving away some tickets for the Army Bowl that is happening here next year. Thank you and God bless.
This has been a Power of God production. This program has been sponsored by Last Chance Ministries and KDRY Radio.